Have you seen the clip there? I've seen it on social media. Simon Sinek, the Start With Why guy. He's talking about the phones, and he's doing the speech there, and he's like, if I'm talking to you the whole time, and this is in my hand, he's like, what are you gonna be thinking about the phone? He's like, and if I'm sitting here, even if the phone's on the table, he's like, my phone's still more important than you, right?
Yeah,
and he's like, even if you turn it over, he's like, oh, but it's still there, right? So he's like, if you're with someone, he's like, be with them. Your phone shouldn't be prevalent. It's like, it's
here
really
I am
true.
with my phone flipped over.
Yeah, exactly.
But I did take my watch off.
There you go.
Because
step in the right direction.
That's right.
From the business capital of the world, the Big Apple, New York's Middle Tennessee, it says here. Sounds riveting. Yep. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. Mostly.
That's right. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Matt Wilson from the Mostly Marketing Podcast. He does the voice for mine. I did the voice for his. We do that here at it'syourshow.co. If you need a new intro for your podcast, kind of got a special going on right now. Check us out at it'syourshow.co. First thing, getting it out of the way with, you tune into a podcast for me to advertise to you. That's why you do this. But no, this podcast is about mostly Middle Tennessee business owners, professionals, entrepreneurs. We have a real conversation that meanders. We go down rabbit holes. We, whatever the meat in the sandwich kind of comes out, we chase it. So this is a video and audio podcast. Check us out at MMTBP.com if you want to watch or listen. Follow along there, of course. And you also can subscribe and apply to be on the show. I've got a link there. If you think you'd be a good fit, let us know. I am your host with Jim McCarthy Voiceovers. With Jim McCarthy. It's an early Friday morning right now. Jim McCarthy with Jim McCarthy Voiceovers. And today, this is a great episode if you're like partners with somebody in a team, especially in the real estate industry, because these guys are not only clients of ours with their own podcast, The Ugly Truth of Real Estate, or with Huggy and Hutch, Mr. Brandon Hutchison and Alan Huggins. Guys, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up? What's up?
Yeah,
how are you to be here?
So, again, as we talked about, Brandon and Alan are a team. Brandon handles mortgages. Alan is the realtor.
Yep.
Or realtor, as some might say. Does that rub you the wrong way sometimes?
Every time.
Realtor?
There's not an A after the L.
Are there doctors out there?
Exactly.
Podcasters?
There you go.
So there you go. So starting off with you guys, I mean, you've got extensive experience. When we sat down to talk about your podcast, it was the genesis of an idea that I could subscribe to, kind of like a fatigue that's happening with so many so-called experts out there. And you were like, we just want to call BS on them, man. But it's kind of evolved and morphed into other things. But talk about, Brandon, you and I go way back from our BNI days. You've been doing mortgages how long now?
23 years, so I've been doing it for a while, yeah.
That's crazy.
Don't know any better.
Yeah. But, you're a glutton for punishment.
That's right.
And Alan, I've met you recently along with Brandon, so you would tell you're a highly decorated real estate agent as well.
Yes, so I've got a brokerage on the west side of Nashville. I've been doing it for 21 years. Like Brandon, I don't know anything but anything different. I graduated college and started doing it 3 months later.
How did you kind of get into it? What was did somebody tell you, hey, this is something you should do?
Yeah, so I have an uncle who still owns a brokerage here in town. He owned a the same brokerage when I graduated college, and I'd always thought that I love music, and I've thankfully passed this on to my son. But so I played in a band in college, and thought when I came home to Nashville, Music City, right? So I'm going to get in the business side of the music industry. And so I thought doing that, and I met a couple guys in the music industry, and they kind of put this negative spin on everything. And Jim, I think you know me well enough. I'm a pretty positive guy, right?
You are.
And so I met with my uncle, and he was very positive and just saying, hey, sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want. You can make as much as you want, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, gosh, this negative energy over here in music or this positive energy in real estate. And I thought, I'm going to stay positive. So I went in real estate, and that was March of 2003. And whatever date it is now in 2024, here we are. So
Brandon, what about you?
Yeah, so I was working for I dropped out of college multiple times because, like many people, I had to work and had to make money. And I was working for a startup company, and they went out of business. And my dad said, why don't you go talk to these guys? They have a mortgage company. And I was like, what's that?
What's a mortgage?
Yeah. You know, I was like 20, right? And so I'm like, okay, what's that look like? What's a mortgage? So I went and talked to these guys, and you remember the movie with Adam Sandler when he goes to the bank and he's like, I don't have any money, but I have some in a piggy bank on top of it. And he's like, I'd like to have more money. You know anything about money? And he's like, no. And that was kind of me. I don't know anything about
the wedding
mortgage.
singer?
Yeah, the wedding singer. That was it. Yeah. So I was kind of like that, right? I had no idea what the heck I was talking about. They're like, you afraid to, call people on the phone, talk to strangers, your income's completely reliant on making sales. I'm like, sure, sounds fun. Where do I sign?
Sounds fun.
No licensing, so I started the next day. They're like, here's your desk. There's a phone. There's no computers on the desk. There's like 2 computers in the front of the office. So just
Here's a
sit there.
phone book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's basically it. So we sat there. They'd send us, sometimes they would send us leads that we would call. Sometimes we would just have to go out and do whatever. But it was the Wild West.
It's funny because I look at when I sold cars years ago, I was in the role that typically you're in, Alan, as a salesman.
Yep.
And then F&I was the mortgage department.
Oh, yeah.
But the big difference is that mortgage people have to have strategic partnerships with realtors because you're kind of leading the way. You're the tip of the spear, typically for the conversation and the transaction.
That's right.
I would imagine.
No, you're right.
And then that kind of, I need someone to finance it. And as a realtor, I just need someone to make me not look bad.
That's right.
Right. And get the process done.
Yep.
Right. But in the car business, it was like, the F&I guy they're just getting business dropped off at their doorstep constantly. I guess that's a big difference between mortgage people and F&I people. But starting off, making all those cold calls, I've certainly received them. Brandon, I guess you're calling. I mean, are you calling people? I mean, for refis and stuff like that in the beginning? I have literally no. I have very little understanding of your business.
Yeah. So when I started the company I worked for, it was like a little boiler room kind of brokerage. So we used to buy telemarketing leads. They would fax them to us, and we would sit and have call nights. And so my manager would bring in 2 suitcases of beer, and we'd sit there and drink beer and literally have call nights, calling people for refinances.
How much beer?
Natty Light.
Oh, yeah, the good
It's
stuff.
high quality. So we would sit. There were 6 guys in the office, literally all young guys, and we would sit there. No computers on our desk. The office was like half the size of this, 2 people to an office.
Yeah.
Our desks were basically touching, and we just sit there like calling, seeing who could call more.
It's like Wolf of Wall Street type stuff.
for
in the
real.
beginning.
Yeah, it was madness. So there was a lot of that. So that's kind of like my baptism into the business. I have a great story. So like my first month in, I'm sitting at one of the computers at the front, and my manager's standing over my shoulder, and he's like looking, and I'm like, keying somebody's information, and I'm like, am I doing this wrong? He's like, no. He's like, that's a purchase, right? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, how'd you get that? I've never done one.
Wow.
This is my manager.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I was talking to this guy that I met at the bar the other night, and he was buying a house, and I asked him if he was getting a loan.
Wow.
And so all they'd ever done was like those kind of like, telemarketing leads or whatever kind of things like that. So
For refis, man.
yeah, for refi.
Yeah.
That's all they ever did was refi. So just call these lists of people, telemarketers call people if they expressed the slightest interest, they would sell us the list.
Right.
And so we would do that. So yeah, but I mean,
those things that lasted till the crash in 08. I mean, those things were they were
huge.
around a while.
Yeah, they were huge. So it was craziness. So, and then about a year and a half later, a company asked me if I wanted to move to Nashville because I was in East Tennessee, and I moved down here, and I knew 2 people, and so really, literally, just picked up a Yellow Pages and started calling real estate offices. Just
to get, hey, I'm a new guy in town.
a mortgage guy.
Yeah.
See, so
Get another one.
taking donuts, walking into real estate offices, getting thrown out of real estate offices, just calling people, meeting people. So yeah, I've done tens of thousands of cold calls
Yeah.
in my life. And then just, more so recently, knock on wood, don't have to do as many cold calls, but do a lot of more relationship type marketing, things like that. And so, I mean, we still make tons of phone calls. I mean, Alan and I talk about it all the time. Like it's a big part of both of our business. I have thousands of past clients, so I have to call past clients. I call my real estate partners. I call my other business partners. So there's, lots of pounding the phone, lots of seeing people, pressing the flesh, belly to belly sales, that sort of thing.
I mean, that in and of itself is a skill for sure. Do you remember your first scripts when you started?
Yeah, bumbling through it, just like.
Have you memorized them? Can you recite them by like when I worked in radio? My first on-air job was with the home of rock and roll, I-95. That was the latest from Led Zeppelin in another 40-minute long set. Coming up next, we're gonna kick things off with 38 Special. Stick around. And that was, to this day, I remember what I said. It's like muscle memory. Yeah. So is that something can you guys recall the script? Because you must have said it thousands of times.
So we were taught something years ago that I just found out, or not just found out, but I found out when I was taught it that it was something I just kind of came by naturally. It was called the Ford conversation: family, occupation, recreation, and dream. Mm-hmm. And so my kind of superpower is creating rapport with almost anybody. I can figure out something that you and I have in common pretty quickly, right? And so then I just hammer at it, whether we're in the South here, right? Whether it's college football or whether it's where you went to school or whatever. And so what I realized very early on is if I was on the phone, I needed to find what was that one thing that I had in common with that person, and let's just go after it. Because if you can create that rapport with somebody, it immediately builds trust, even if it's a cold call on the phone, right? Yeah. So that was the biggest thing, but I still use Ford to this day. I mean, you start with, hey, how's the fam? How the kids? How's work? I know the mortgage rates are down, so are you picking up? And then you guys have any fun trips for the summer? What are the kids doing for sports? Blah, blah, blah. So, I can go through that conversation in 5 minutes with somebody and kind of take notes and figure out, okay, they're going, fall break's coming up here in Middle Tennessee in a couple weeks. They're going to the beach or whatever, so that was something that, again, I just kind of did naturally. I just didn't do enough of it. And that's where coaching, and we talk about this on our podcast, but, coaching for both of us has been paramount in getting us to where we are. And that was where coaching kind of took that, put it on steroids, and then held me accountable to it.
Well, I mean, the Ford, it's a great acronym.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I did hear that even in the car business. Not that we would make cold calls.
Right.
But we received a lot of calls, a lot of inquiries, hey, do you still got this car available? What's your best price? And typically it was, you kind of got trained to, well, hey, let me go. First thing first was trying to get their contact information because we didn't automatically have that. We wanted to try and get them into the CRM, name, phone number and address if you can get it. Hey, let me go lay hands on it before we do anything. What's a good number to reach you back? Yeah. And, get their information. You'd go out, and I would actually, even though I had a good feeling, sometimes the car would sell. Yeah. I would go out there just so I could lay my head on a pillow at night. Yeah. And make sure the car was there, because this way I can go back and truthfully tell the person, this is something that, it's here. And then, well, what's your best price on it? Well, why don't you come by and just drive it to see if you like it before we start talking about price. But our pricing is based on true pricing. It goes by marketability and stuff like that. So if you do any research on the car, you're going to find that we're pretty much in the ballpark. Yeah. So, I mean, either way, and it was like direct to business all the time.
But what was your like where I struggle the most is in close, right? What was your go-to close?
Basically, you had to earn it. So once they were there, the feel the wheel sealed the deal. Yeah. Much like you guys, it's a great school for that because you're getting multiple at bats. Every day on the second largest purchase somebody's going to make. Totally. So
with their first being through us.
Right. So I mean, the close was first with a trial close. Hey, we get back and hey, where do you want me to park this? Put it right in that spot right over there. That's the I'm going to take it home this afternoon spot. So. And they would kind of laugh.
Nice.
And hey, if the numbers are agreeable, is this something you could actually see taking home today?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say if the price is right. Numbers are agreeable is how I would put it. You know what? Yeah, let's take a look at it. All right, just come follow me. And I'll lead them in. Hey, can I get you some water or anything? Any coffee and everything? I'm going to start working everything up. How are you planning on titling this? Yeah. That was a trial close question. Yeah. And that was basically getting like all of a sudden they're mentally making that commitment. And at that point, it was just showing them presenting the numbers. Here's how you look at it, the Foursquare. Here's your lease. Here's your payments. Here's your purchase. If you want to pay cash for it, yada, 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 your trade, all that stuff. And, and this, I would literally just go on Facebook and just let them look over it. I would not talk. First.
Nice.
Yeah.
Loses. Yep.
So, and that was the basics of it. And I learned the fundamentals and then made them my own. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like voiceover. I teach the fundamentals and I say, until you find your own voice, you're just going to be able to, you're going to have to figure out your fundamentals and internalize them.
Yeah, because you and I talked about this before we got started. Is that word authentic? That as you and I agreed, it's been overused so much, right? Yeah, but there is an authenticity to when you're doing something like that. Like the coach that Brandon and I had years ago, he was definitely much more of a bang the table. You're going to sign this paper, and here's why. That you get to know. That's not me. Like that is not me at all. So what I had to do was take his tactics and put them in my space, because if I did that to one of my clients, they'd walk out the door in a heartbeat. Like they'd be like, dude, who is this asshole? Like, you know? And so for me, it was one of those where I had to learn that very fast, because I tried it a couple times and it was like, why wouldn't they sign? It was like, because you're not you. Yeah. That's not you. That's not your personality. That never has been. So, you know, that authenticity, even though as bastardized as it has been, I think there is something to that of taking the strategies are the same, right? It's just making them yours, making them feel natural.
Well, I think a lot of the guys that are out there these days that are pushing that are pushing it towards a certain young demographic
100%.
That are buying into it because they're being sold an overnight success type of story.
Yes.
These guys that they're just kind of preying on them. And that's what I don't like about it. You know, dare I say the Andy Elliott's of the world and that kind of, and even people that align with the guy. So a friend of ours, he's like, yeah, you know, everything that he touches, I want nothing part of. Yeah. You know, and it's like, hey, this is how it's kind of going to go, because the hard sale concept is just, you can't do it anymore. Yeah. It's got to be relational. Yeah. There's some transactionality in these things now, but I mean, especially in selling homes, I mean, this is, they want to come back and use you again or refer their friends. That's your best interest right there for both of you guys.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah. That's right.
What do you think about, because I feel like there's a difference now, right, with the way kids are raised, even just basic social skills compared to like when we were kids, right? And so I feel like that's why it's probably easier maybe to prey on this generation, because if you think back, like, can you think back, Jim, about like your first like real sales experience? Because
Rainbow Vacuums.
I love it.
Yep.
How old were you?
I was 18.
There you go.
I bet you were younger. I bet there's probably sales experience before that, right?
Like, it was, you know, I mean, I know where you're going with this. I mean, I was always kind of a naturally gifted, good personality. My mom always used to say, you were my entertainment. Because I was just always like, Ma, you know, I'd bring my friends over. She was from the Bronx, and she'd always had a cigarette in her mouth. She was like, you know.
You were the performer.
I was. I was the class clown in a way, and she's like, you know, I'd bring my friends over and like, Ma, talk. Show them how you talk. What do you mean show them how I talk? I don't know what you're talking about, you know. And my friends would just laugh because they never heard somebody with such a deep New York accent.
That's awesome.
And I used to make prank phone calls. And I guess there was a salesmanship training happening there, because I would get into a character. Yeah. Like the Jerky Boys. You remember those guys?
Yeah. Good Lord.
Oh, my
Blast from the
gosh.
past.
I mean, I used to do voices and all that, and I would carry on these conversations at 16, 17 years old with these adults, and they'd be buying everything I was selling, you know? And it was a prank phone call.
That's awesome.
But see, I think we can look back, right, and we can see those things from our past, like from an early age, that were probably precursors to where we are and what we do now. Yeah. Just from like basic relationship building, like basic fundamental skills that you have as far as building rapport, like learning that early. And so I think sometimes that's different now, because like the whole generation's like this. Yeah. So it's a little bit harder to learn, and something we worry about. I was talking to a friend yesterday about that, like during COVID, everybody went home. Right. And it's like, okay, let's get on more screens. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So now your whole life, even school, they took school home for a little while. Right. So it's like, you know, it's hard. It's much more difficult, I feel like, this generation to be able to gain those basic sales skills, those rapport building skills that serve us in everyday life.
Well, it comes down to that emotional intelligence, right? I mean, like my wife and I've read the book that you and I, Brandon, have talked about, you know, the anxious generation. And it speaks to that exact thing. And the thing that our society is going to lose is emotional intelligence, because you're not going to have the ability to work through a situation personally when somebody comes at you or does something to you. We're dealing with something right now with one of our children, and it's a bit of a bullying situation. And, you know, we told him, we said, hey, listen, you got to take care of this. Like, you got to deal with this yourself. You either got to go talk to this kid, you got to go talk to your advisor, something, you know, both. So when the school approached us about it, it was kind of like, hey, we're letting him deal with it. Like that he needs that, because sadly, our kids are on their screens too much, and we feel like we're pretty good at it, you know, not letting them have too much time. So.
I don't think they're all that, you know, far gotten, I guess. Yeah. My son he went and got himself a job at Kroger. Yep. He had a little bit of a tense or terse situation with a coworker, if not a manager, somebody who's in their 40s working at Kroger, and they were just, I understand what they were doing, and in a way I kind of appreciate it. And if I were to talk to them, be like, listen, man, I get it. He's 16, he's learning, you're giving him a hard time. I kind of appreciate that, so thank you, because he needs that.
Sure.
And he needs to learn how to process and go through that conflict. He comes, I can't stand her, I hate her. I'm like, Spencer, hate's a strong, no, I hate her. Okay. Look, I said, but here's the thing, buddy. When you actually address people like this, there are psychological ways to come around. I would teach them little ways of, I said, it's like selling something. What she's doing is just giving you an objection, So what do you do in an objection situation? And he's like, come on, I've taught you this so many times. He's like, I don't know. Okay. You always agree.
Yeah. Love it.
I completely understand, where you're coming from. I'm new. I'm 16 years old. Help me understand how we can kind of get through this and blah, 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 and all these little word tracks to help him start internalizing that. He's getting better. He's a salesman.
Oh, I love it.
He's a reluctant salesman. He's 16 and I know nothing.
Yeah.
But, eventually if he ever applies himself, he'll be a friggin' monster.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
But I mean, I think there's still faith. There's still hope. And, if we pour into him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
But, it's been fun. Yeah.
Does your garage door sound like this? If it does, it's screaming for help. Call Incredible Doors, 931-348-DOOR. We're making garage doors in Murray and Williamson counties work better, sound better, and, spring better. We just make them incredible again. Incredible Doors in Spring Hill. When your door's springs break, you need remote reconnections, opener installation, or just about anything to do with your garage door, go to IncredibleDoors.com or call 931-348-DOOR. Follow us on Facebook for specials on maintenance visits, keypads, and other items. 931-348-DOOR.
So, I mean, you guys, you're dealing with, are you dealing with that, Brandon, as well?
I am, 15-year-old daughter. So, I have no idea what to do with a 15-year-old girl. So, I'm flying completely blind, right?
Yeah.
So, building a plane while we're flying across the ocean.
I love it.
I'm, divorced. And so I'll be like, do you need to call your mom? Do you need to go to mom's house?
Right.
Do you need me to call mom for you? Because I have no idea what I'm doing. She's very reluctant. Now, it's funny because you talk about the scripts. And so I sometimes can see she'll be in the car, she'll be sitting beside me, and I'll be talking to a client on the phone who's wanting to do an application. And I have the basic questions I run through, and well, who referred you? What'd they say about us? Oh yeah, they're our favorite person, or the normal things that you say every time. And I swear, she'll be mouthing it because she's heard me say it 25,000 times, right? But she wants no part of sales. She wants no part of entrepreneurship. It's so funny. It's
awesome.
Kind of
For
weird.
now.
For now, that's
now.
right.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the thing is my son worked for me for a season doing audio editing.
Yeah.
And, because you're working for dad, it's easy. I can get away with more stuff. He wouldn't put his entire heart into it. So a lot of mistakes were made. Client would come back and say, hey, this entire section's been removed. Did you? I'm like, okay. So after many, many times, I'm like, I've probably fired him 8 times. And the last time, I'm like, dude, I can't have you doing this anymore. This is starting to affect our income.
Yeah.
And I said, look, you just need to learn what it's like to trade your time for money. Yeah. And then eventually you'll see what I've been doing with you. Oh my gosh, that's much better.
Yeah.
And I said, even with your skill set, with your audio production, your video production skills, you've got music production skills. I said, that's all monetizable. Yeah. You want to buy a car. Figure out a way. Yeah. Right now, you're trading your time for money. It's going to take time, but there's a way to compress that. And he's kind of learning the hard way, man.
No doubt.
And he's overcoming objections. He keeps getting his job back.
There you go.
Oh, buddy.
8 times.
To my detriment. Yeah.
Overcome close.
Yeah.
Overcome close.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Basically,
Objection,
just
overcome.
It was more me just having a soft heart towards him.
That's awesome.
Whatever
I feel,
works.
I feel bad firing you.
Yeah.
But my
Not
gosh.
that bad because you rehired him.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Until I've had enough. You know, I can't keep doing those.
That's right.
But I mean, that's what you guys are in for. So.
There you go. Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Good times.
Can't wait. I'm right there. Yeah.
But I mean, you know, having your daughter work for you, I mean, is that something she's considered? And you know, not at all?
No, yeah, she wants nothing to do with the industry. But I'm like, you realize this industry is what provided your life,
Yeah.
right? And like, you
Yeah,
have a
but-
pretty great life. So.
But I mean, I think it goes without saying that, like our kids, I know my kids. I mean, our kids have seen what we go through. You know, whether we want to admit it or not, or try to hide it or not. You know, they see that. You
Oh,
know?
yeah, for sure.
They see the pain in your eyes when you come home and you've had a shit day. You know, I mean, they see that. And so, like, one of the things that after this event that you and I were at last week is, you know, I'm putting my phone in a drawer when I get home at night and don't take it out until the kids are in bed.
Yeah.
And because I'd gotten to the point where we'd be watching TV with the kids and I'd be on my phone and they'd look over and go, Dad, did you see? Nope, you didn't. You know, it's like, damn it, I can't do that. So, you know, my kids are 13 and 10 and so they're getting there, but you know, at the same time, I can still make a difference in that regard. But I know from conversations in the car to conversations at home or whatever, my kids know everything that's going on as far as work goes. You know, they don't necessarily know exactly what I do day to day, but they also do know that, like, oh yeah, Dad maybe had a tough day today, or Dad had a great, you know, had a closing or two. Great, good job.
You know, think about, you know, in the 20s and 30s, those kids, you know, after, especially in the 30s with the Great Depression, those kids were aware what their parents were going through.
Absolutely.
My grandfather was
hide it.
born in 26. He dropped out of school, and in 1934 he was 8 because he had to work on his parents' farm.
Damn.
Right? You know, because
wild.
he had to work so they could go out and get other work. Right? So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, they had a very astute understanding of what was going on.
And that's what shaped them for World War II.
Oh yeah,
Well, those are the guys who went on the front lines.
absolutely.
Stormed Normandy.
That's right.
Yeah, so I had one of those kind of sobering conversations with my daughter a couple weeks ago. We like to play ping pong, and so we were playing ping pong, and like I'm getting the ball or something off the table, and I turn around and she's picked her phone up and look on her phone. I'm like, "What are you doing? Get off your phone!" And she's like, "You're on your phone all the time." I'm like, "Oh."
Gut punch.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, I guess same thing. I gotta leave my phone away, right? But you know, they've said that, you know, before, because I know they had lots of memories probably being younger, right? Even on vacation, I'd be like on the phone, I'd be like trying to, you know, living out of fear and, you know, not living in abundance and just thinking, well, I've got to answer this call, I've got to like help this person, I've got to figure this out, even while I'm on vacation, even when I'm doing things with my kids. So that's why our favorite place to go now is national parks, because the cell phones don't work in there.
Right.
So
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
So true.
it's awesome. So
Why
every year,
not,
every
right?
summer we go to national parks, because part of it's selfishly for me, because even if I pick up the phone, I can't get any service. So yeah, it's great.
Awesome. That's not a bad tactic, man.
But it is funny, right? We go to these events. I was just saying, this event that you and I went to last week, 3-day event. We went. I was putting my phone away for hours at a time, like not even looking at it.
The world didn't end.
The world didn't end. And I'm sitting there going, why can't I do that when I'm meeting with somebody, when I'm having coffee with Brandon? Or why can't I do that when I sit at home for an hour and a half with my kids? Like, that's ridiculous. If they're that important to me, if you're that important to me, I can put my phone in my bag. And so I've got a little hack for anybody that's listening. Is I've got a backpack that I carry around now, and I throw my phone in the bag before every meeting, and I don't pull it out till it's over. And I love it. It's been 3 days, 4 days of doing it, and I like feel better. Just feel, better about it. It's like, all right, I'm actually interested in what this person has to say and not feeling the buzz in my pocket going like, I wonder who's calling me. I wonder who's texting me. Oh, crap. I should probably check this. Hold on. You know, it's like you just basically gave 2 birds to the guy in front of you.
Yeah.
Right? You know?
Yeah.
Have you seen the clip there? I've seen it on social media. Simon Sinek, you know, the Start With Why guy. He's talking about the phones, and he's doing the speech there, and he's like, you know, if I'm talking to you the whole time and this is in my hand, he's like, what are you gonna be thinking about the phone? He's like, and if I'm sitting here, even if the phone's on the table, he's like, my phone's still more important than you, right? And he's like, you know, even if you turn it over, he's like, oh, but it's still there, right? So he's like, if you're with someone, he's like, be with them. Your phone shouldn't be, you know, prevalent. It's like,
Well,
it's
here
really
I am
true.
with my phone flipped over.
Yeah,
exactly.
But I did take my watch off.
There you go.
Because
step in the right direction.
that's right.
I turn the alerts off. I like the smartwatches, but I turn all the alerts off because I don't. It's just another leash, and another distraction.
Yeah, because I mean, it buzzes and you're like, oh crap, and it becomes subconscious at that point.
Well, email is such a paralyzer in our world, right? And you could, one of the things that I was taught so early in my career is like, turn the ding off, right?
Yeah.
The ding on your computer when you get a new email. And I did that, and I'm sitting there going, why don't I do that for text messages and stuff like that? Like if somebody's calling me, that's one thing. But if somebody's just texting me, like, that doesn't need to be necessarily responded to immediately. I can wait 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So.
When I shoot a lot of people, when I film a lot of people for video,
Well,
sometimes,
what's going on here?
I'm doing the interview and I'm doing the filming.
Yep.
And I always have to preface it when they sit down and say, hey, listen, I'm going to be doing a lot of looking at the camera. I'm not ignoring you.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure everything's still rolling. We're still in frame, so on and so forth. They completely understand. Sometimes during a podcast, the idea of social media will come up on their socials. And I'll just pick it up and I'll check out their socials. And I'm like, I look so rude right now. I'm in the middle of a podcast episode. And I'm like, I always say, I'm as authentic as I am. I say, look, I'm just picking up my phone because I'm checking out your socials right now. I am not ignoring you. Look at all the things that I'm doing right now. I'm conducting a conversation. I'm switching between video cameras and I'm running the board. I think I can handle one more thing. Why not?
That's pretty impressive multitasking, especially for a man.
Right?
Dude,
Exactly.
this is so. My wife and I love this show on Hulu, and the kids went to bed the other night, and we were trying to play catch up. We'd had like 5 episodes to catch up on, right? And so when kids were in bed, I grabbed my phone, and I start realizing after about 15 minutes of watching the show, I have no clue what has happened in the
to me
show
all the time.
And I'm like, put the phone down. Like, you have it's a 30-minute show. You just lost half of it by just sitting there going, what am I missing? I'm not missing anything. I'm playing some stupid game. Like, put the phone down and just freaking watch TV and enjoy it.
Some games will actually help me engage with external stimuli. Like if I'm playing, like a Candy Crush-esque game, it actually helps me zero in on stuff that's, I found that about myself.
Interesting.
But typically I'm also of the age that if a show doesn't grab me in the first 2 to 3 minutes, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I'm like, I don't know what that says about me, but my wife, she's so frustrated. Are you even watching this? I'm like, Courtney, it's not Marvel. Okay. It didn't grab me immediately. All right. That's what I like.
I see. Yeah, now I get it.
But I mean, it's crazy. I just had a guy on, Brian Galkey. You guys familiar with Brian?
I'm not.
I don't think so.
He's a facial analyst.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He does a lot of body language and stuff like that. And he actually, he was the last episode, well, not to you guys, so the second to last. So you guys are going to be a couple episodes from him. But one of the clips I put out, he talked about an intelligent.com study that was done about kids that are applying for college for jobs coming out of college. And he says this generation doesn't know how to make eye contact. Like 56% of the applicants couldn't make eye contact. There was something else. And the funniest thing is that some of them, like a low percentage, 12 or 13%, had to bring their parents with them to the job interview.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Just to your point earlier.
Right.
About, that kind
a
of
good
came
look.
to mind.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't do this without mom's permission. So please just, yeah.
Right.
That's the last thing I want as a parent, personally.
But I'm wondering sometimes if it's just exaggerated by media, Have you seen like the Veronica videos at all? It's like a cartoon, and I guess it's based on a YouTuber or Instagram personality. I think her name is The Real Veronica, and it's with a K.
Okay.
But she puts out all these scenarios that show inside corporate America, hey, we saw that you gave your 2-week notice, or no, you're not giving a 2-week notice, even though you resigned. We require a 2-week notice. And well, okay, let's flip that over. If you were to get rid of me, do I get a 2-week notice, or are you just going to fire me on the spot? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Making what modern day corporate America looking bad, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and the comment sections are very interesting because they go back and forth. Like, well, Veronica, yeah, she's got a point, but she's also a really bad hire, because she questions everything. She pushes back, hey, we need you to take on extra responsibilities while we're filling a role here. Am I getting paid more? And it's like a legitimate question.
Right.
Am I going to get paid more for this? Yeah, we'll try and help, and from a corporation, having integrity, let's see what we can do to help you out in the meantime. Maybe we'll even bump you up in pay, and maybe we'll give you a promotion or something like that. But typically it's always like, well, no, we just need you to do this. And rightfully so. She's like, well, I'm just not going to do that then, unless I'm getting paid more.
Yeah, but, and that may work in big corporate America.
Right.
Like, both of us have small businesses, right? I have 5 employees. I think you've got 6, 8 maybe. How many you got?
Let's see. In mortgage, I guess 4. Yeah, 4 now, and then the other real estate 4.
Okay.
5. Yeah,
so let's call it both of us have teams of 5 and 6. Yeah. Like if one of my team members did something like that, I'd look at him and go, we're going to have this conversation. Like for real, we're going to have this conversation because I think how it's going to go.
Yeah.
One, I can't afford to pay you anymore than I'm paying you right now. This is a team. One of our core values is team player. Yeah. Like if you're going to ask me all these questions, look, I am all about pushing back. My parents will tell you, I push back on a lot of things.
Yeah.
But when it's necessary.
Yeah.
Right. Like I have an amazing director of ops, and it is about once or twice a year, she will come to me and just be like, hey, do you think this is the right decision? And 10 times out of 10, I was about to say 9 out of 10, but 10 times out of 10, she's right. Right. But it's those little times that she pushes back when I know that she's not doing it every single time. But when it's necessary, she's pushing back and going, hey, is this the right call? And she's like, you're right. Let's pump the brakes. Right. So, when you're running in, an Amazon or an Oracle or a Google or one of these Facebook, Meta or whatever, you can do a little bit more of that. Right. Yeah. But if you're in a small business, which most of the folks that we run with are in small business, like you can't do that. You can't have people that would, that almost disrespect your authority in a sense. Because like if I'm asking you to do something, my folks know that it's something that I've either already done or I'm willing to do myself. But I know that at this time right now with everything else we've got going on, I can't do it. Yeah. And so it's not like I'm going on a trip or I'm going to play golf and I'm like, I don't want to do that. You just do that. It's not like that at all. It's more of a, hey, we're swamped right now and I need some help.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the, like those things I'm talking about, the Veronica videos, are teaching the next generation. And even I had a conversation recently, well, a lot of this generation isn't going to put up with toxicity in the workplace, that kind of thing. Yeah. And I said, I understand that. And I empathize with it. Yeah. I said, but here's the thing. Right now, we're in a semi-peacetime economy. I said, and the ball is semi in their court, in the employee's court. I said, it's not always going to be that way. Yeah. So toxicity or whatever you deem as toxic, or bullying or whatever, your safe spaces, whatever you need, and, all these different things, when the rubber meets the road and things get truly tough, just the example of bullying. Well, you can't bully me because it's not part of our policy and yada, yada. You're still going to get punched in the face. Then what are you going to do? You know what I mean?
Everybody's got a great plan if they get punched in the face.
And okay, what are you going to do then? It's like a lot of voiceover people in that community talk about, well, you got to know your worth. And when somebody lowballs you, just tell them you know your worth. And I said, no, that's not good enough. Yeah. You have to prove your worth. Yeah. And that's the same kind of thing. Like even when I went for raises in radio, when I didn't put my effort into it, I would get my standard 2 to 3% cost of living. Yeah. But sometimes I would actually, I'm going to shoot for 15 or 20. Mm-hmm. And I would have to build a case. Yeah. Here's what I've done. Here's how it should have panned out for you. I've added this, we've added video to the mix and all this other stuff. We should figure out how to monetize that, So I was bringing value to the table and be like, for these reasons, I believe I deserve at least a 15% kick. What do you think? Yeah. And typically it would work out because I would sell it. And that's where a lot of the people miss out on these days.
Well, it's okay. That's a great segue. What is I know we're here a bunch doing podcasts with you. Like what is the biggest thing? You have a fairly young group of folks around you in the media world. Like what is the biggest thing you see out of that crew that is just drastically different from say our generation?
I would say, I mean, it's cliche to say at this point, but entitlement. Yeah. Entitlement's a large part of it. I think it's being fed, well, this is what you deserve. Yeah. I think people are starting to get over the hump. Well, I went to college, I got the degree. Because of that, I was told I would get this. Well, the reality is different. Right. And as they're finding that out. I think ultimately with young people, it's just teaching them. We work with a lot of young people here in this building as well. Yeah. And we're dealing with just teaching them how to work in a company. Because they're all in their 20s, they're all figuring it out, how to have the dynamics, how to work politics, that kind of thing. I had an employee that, once told another person that needed help with unloading a truck for 5 minutes. Yeah. Well, that's not my job. I'm like, oh, hell no. We don't say that around here. And I told you that from the get-go. Yeah. And you were okay with it. So...
Veronica said, though, Veronica switched back. So. There's also paying dues, right? Paying dues and providing value. So that's how you're more valuable to a company.
Right. Well, but I was that way to an extent. And quite frankly, in sometimes I find myself, slinking back down into that. And that is like, I want to have all that stuff, but I know in my heart of hearts that I have to put the work in to do it. But there's times when I find myself that I'm like, all right, I deserve that. Like and it's that little sense of entitlement. And I'm like, no, bullshit. Like, do the work, put the work in, and it'll come. Like, but you're not just going to get it because you quote deserve it. Like,
right.
But that's a big one I see as well.
Well, I mean, maybe there's a virtue to some of these clowns out there on social media that are that are espousing that message. Yes, that is a good message to espouse, but the way they're kind of doing it, like. Even all I'm going to bring them up again. The Andy Elliott's of the world are teaching managers. Yeah. To shoot themselves in the foot, especially because his most of his background came from the car business. Yeah. teaching very highly transactional, one call close types of businesses, how to sell and all that kind of thing. Those are great fundamentals, but understanding that over the long term, you got to convert them from transactional to being more relational. Door to door, you can learn the fundamentals. Car business, you can learn the fundamentals. Real estate, you can learn the fundamentals and find your voice to be more relational. And he's not teaching that. And that's what always, at least on the surface, I've never delved deep into his teachings. But that was one of the things. I'm like, look, you're talking about people, and I had this conversation with another guy who kind of backed up he was all championing it. And I said, I disagree vehemently with everything the guy's saying. Well, why is that? I said, because he's teaching the management and the ownership and the general management of that company to shoot themselves in the foot. These people don't have to stick around. It's not the military. Okay. And these are militaristic operations, if you will, in selling, and hazing these people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, he's like, well, in baseball, I said, baseball is different, dude. That's a passion-driven sport. You wanted to be there, and if you didn't perform, the coach would get on you. But your passion is what kept you there because you wanted to play. I said, this is the car business. 95% of these guys and girls, it's a job. Yeah. It's a job. It's I can go anywhere else and be treated hopefully better. Why do we need to stick around here? And then the managers, well, hey, we did blah, blah, blah. Okay, what are the costs of rehiring and training? You're shooting yourself in the foot instead of concentrating on building a good culture. Yeah. Which there are several few car dealerships that do that here around town. So,
but you can see a good culture when you walk in the door. Totally. I mean, I pride ourselves on the culture that we have, but I work at it. Yeah. I take them to lunch once a month on my dime. We go do something fun once a month as a group on my dime. Every morning we have a 9:15 standing meeting, and the first way I started is asking people how their evening was or how your weekend was or what are you up to this weekend? Like when we have our meeting, it's a Friday today, when we have our meeting this morning, the first thing I'm going to say is, hey, what are you getting into this weekend? Yeah. Right. And I want to know so that when they come in on Monday, say, hey, I know you went and did this. How was it? Was it awesome? Yeah. You show people you care, they will bust their tail for you.
They really will.
But you can tell it, and some of the feedback that we've gotten through the years is amazing, and it makes me smile because it's like Alan and his team are amazing. They work so well together. They're having fun, and it's like, yes, I want people to know that we work our butts off, but we also have a lot of fun doing it because we enjoy being with each other. Yeah, yeah. And you can see it when it's the other way around. We've worked for companies that, quite frankly, when you walk in the door, you're like, "Ooh, there's some sort of vibe here." And I'm not a touchy feely kind of person, but like there is some sort of vibe here, right? Yeah. It's wild.
So I know I touched upon it at the beginning of the show, in the episode. The impetus for the podcast that we're doing for you guys. What was it? What was frustrating for you? Why did you start getting into it?
Yeah, I mean, initially, Brandon and I were, I don't want to say frustrated, but we were seeing so many people in the market, whether it's through Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and they're influencers and they're just kind of fake. And we were like, dude, everything they're doing is just total BS. Like, we got to expose this, right? And we got to tell them that there's an ugly truth to what we do. What we do is not just, for me, show homes and collect checks. Like that's the ongoing joke in our office is people just think we show homes and collect checks. And so Brandon and I really thought about like how can we expose that? How can we show people that, hey, there's a dirty side to every business. There's a dirty side to being successful. Like we talked about a minute ago, that entitlement is there, but you can't do it unless you put in the dirty work. Right. Yeah. And so slowly but surely, as you've seen from producing it, it's kind of morphing into something that's a little bit more about coaching, about being a better person, about just, introducing you to the people that make a difference in our life. Right. Mm-hmm. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it started out, because I think, I brought you the idea, right? We were sitting having beers one day and I was like, I'm just so tired of all the BS and all the, HGTV or the Instagram world, right? And it's like this, it's not really what's going on. Or the people that were professing to be like experts, right? Like these people giving advice on, getting into real estate investing. I'm like, they don't even freaking invest in real estate, right? And it's like, that kind of thing. And so it was like, we wanted to go from that aspect, but yeah, it's definitely morphed more so, I feel like, into kind of the direction that both of us live by, and that's forward progress. Yeah. And so I think you can do both. You can talk about the things that you don't see on TV or the things you don't see on social media highlight reels, but you can also talk about the importance of growing, learning, getting better, coaching, that sort of thing.
And I like that about you guys because the impetus of it was exciting.
Yeah.
You know, hey, let's start calling these people out.
Yeah, totally.
So let's put everybody on blast.
That's right.
Well, and I think what he and I realized is like that's not necessarily our style. Like when we talked the first time, it was kind of that moment of, do we want to go the Jim Rome, kind of loud and obnoxious a little bit more, or do we want to kind of be ourselves, be authentic?
Yeah.
And I think what we both realized is like for our long term of all of this, I was telling you, Jim, I've gotten back into coaching salespeople. You've gotten into, helping, really and truly helping people financially, which is pretty awesome. Like, but that's what we want to do is we want to use this as a platform, as a podium to say, hey, look, we can help.
Yeah.
Like, let us know how we can help. We are an open book. We'll share the ugly truths of what we've done.
Yeah.
But also we want to help people, like Brandon said, move forward. We want to make sure, hey, there is a way and there's a way forward. And it's typically not by being an Instagram, influencer, but it's been a lot of fun, man. I've had a blast.
You guys do a great job at it. I will tell you that. It's one of those things that occasionally I have to do a little bit of coaching and stuff like that. But I mean, every time you hear me, I'm like, well, what do you think? I'm like, I have no complaints.
Nice.
You guys you're good at this, so you need to do it more.
We like to talk.
We're good
You
at
like
that.
to talk, but your ideas are good. And, even I find myself learning so much more, because I don't know much about investing. I'm getting into it myself at the ripe old age of almost 50.
Never too late.
Yep. There you
It's
go.
never too late, but man, it's a learning curve.
Totally.
But
Well, and we've always been taught, like, don't recreate the wheel, right? If you've got people in your market that you trust and that are willing to at least just give you the advice, 99% of it is not the idea.
Yeah.
It's the implementation, right? I mean, yes, there's a new idea occasionally, but in all reality, it's really just implementation. And whether you have somebody to hold you accountable to that, whether you're self-accountable, whatever it is, it's really just execution.
Yeah.
And that's what, one of the coaches that we both had years ago, and he said, his first boss told him, your idea or your job is to make 20 calls a day for 2 weeks. And then after that, I'll give you the rest. He's like, no, I'm a quick learner. Just give it to me. I'll give it all to me and I'll learn it. And he goes, no. You do 20 calls a day for 2 weeks and then I'll give you the rest. And what he was saying was, if you can show me that you're willing to put in the work, again, it's not the idea. You have the accountability and the willingness and the drive to do it. That's what I need.
How long does 20 calls take? I mean, it'll take like half an hour.
It'll take probably an hour. If you're actually talking to people, if you're slide dialing them or something like that, you can do it in 20 minutes. But most times, 20 calls takes me about an hour.
Yeah.
I think it's like.
And you still
23.
do that today? Or,
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Good for you.
I mean, like Brandon said earlier, like the social media and all that kind of stuff is a good supplement to our business. But my bread and butter is relational. I can't build relationships on social media.
You need to put like a camera over your shoulder.
Yeah.
And like watch you take notes and stuff like that. That would be good. That would be a cool video.
Yeah.
The big difference is people confuse sales and marketing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, podcasting, social media, doing videos, sending emails, coming up with a Facebook ad campaign. That's marketing. That's not sales.
Right.
Sales is on the phone with people, in front of people, influencing people that can buy or sell your product directly, either in person or on the phone. So it's like, people confuse sales and marketing so much, and there is no shortcut. You can't cut out the sales aspect.
Yeah.
No matter how much marketing you do.
Yep.
What do you guys think about like all the nomenclature that's emerged in the last 5 to 6 years? Like, warrior and, not impact, but,
It's all about that.
slay, all these like, they're like thinking that they're like gunslingers in the old West, and samurais and stuff like that. I'm like, guys, really?
Yeah.
It is definitely intelligence, dare I say, warfare, because you are trying to separate somebody from their money, but hopefully you're doing it in an integrous way. But I mean, the conferences that have emerged, Any thoughts on
I've got thoughts. I was going to let Brandon take this one, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's marketing, right?
Yeah.
It's, controversial or things that are memorable.
Yeah.
People are they're going to be attracted to it. So
Right.
I saw one, Gladiator conference or something like that the other day on Instagram. I was like, damn.
American
okay.
Gladiators coming back?
Yeah,
Woo,
no, but it was like,
Gladiator.
and they had like the gladiator mask, from
my
the movie, right?
gosh,
Whatever.
that's
And
amazing.
it was a sales conference. So
it's
it's
a gimmick.
right, it is. So
Yeah.
it's a way to get butts and seats. So
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's just like the old newspapers are selling headlines,
Yeah.
right? It's not really the meat of what's there, but
Yeah.
I understand. I mean, that's part of marketing. That's what the world does.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in that, we just talked about this. So I'm a part of a new coaching program in it's countrywide, and we had our first event last week. And one of the things that we talked about as a group of the folks who founded this thing is, if we do the work and we are authentic and real with people, they will come to us. We won't need a gimmick. We won't need. Now, granted, we had 2 speakers at this event that, God bless, if I ever see them again, I will go see them 1,000 times over. They were that good. Yeah. But that was kind of our draw, was two people speaking. It wasn't, a gladiator conference, or whatever. It was really just, hey, you come talk to us. We'll be honest. We'll be real. We'll show you exactly what we'll do. We'll open up the playbook and give it to you, and then we'll hold you accountable to it. Some people love that. Some people are like, yeah, I kind of need the frizz, right? And the only frizz we had was we were talking about earlier, we had a camera crew following us all over, posting everything on social media in real time. To me, was weird as hell. That was the most bizarre thing, being followed for 3 days, with a camera. But at the same time, that was about as much frill as we had at the whole event, right? And it was awesome. We don't need that, because we tell people from the front end, we're not going to give you this light show and fireworks and all that stuff. We're going to give it to you real. And then if you want us to hold you accountable to it, we'll do it.
That's not a bad way to go about it. It's just being honest.
Yeah.
Authenticity.
Yeah. Right.
You're shooting straight. I mean, I had a whole positioning statement for churches, because a lot of them run together. It's funny, like churches and conferences, now that I think about it, they all kind of run together with their marketing. Yep. They say a lot of the same things. Maybe they position it differently. And I was talking to an old friend of mine from one of the churches I used to attend. I said, man, if I were in charge of marketing for a church, I would just put it on I would make it as big as possible. Hey, we're XYZ church. We will let you down.
Love that.
We're gonna fail you, but we're just upfront about it because we're run by humans, and humans are fallible, and we're sinful beings. So we promise you, at some point, we're gonna probably make you mad. Come on. Every Sunday at 9.
There you go.
But if I show you the ugly, it does 2 things. One, it proves that, hey, I'm human, and I'm ugly too.
Yeah.
But 2, like I was talking about earlier, it creates an immediate rapport.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, well, this guy's all high and mighty preachy, and this guy's telling me he's flawed and he's gonna screw up just like the rest of us. I kind of like the real guy that's going to tell me how it is. Yeah.
And it's like, a lot of the guys who have the longevity and have a legacy of sorts that's playing out. You see the Gary V's.
Yeah.
I think Brad Lee is going to be one of them. He and I have conversations about his book, The Hard Way. He's like, they read my book, they won't have to do it the hard way. I'm like, no, they're just going to find a new hard way.
Yeah.
They're going to have to, there's some things that you could tell somebody not to touch the hot stove. Some of them are just going to be like, well, I just wanted to see what your idea of hot was.
Yeah.
You know? I said, so there's a lot of people out there. I think he's definitely one of them. He comes off, like Brad does come off as like a bro fraternity-esque, and I would tell this to his face. I said, but there's also a vulnerability. And I told him that too. He's like, what do you mean I'm vulnerable? I said, it's okay. You can be vulnerable.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah. Candor is actually a good thing. And that's, I believe, what is lacking in marketing today. It worked for Avis back in the 80s. If you remember, the car rental companies had battles on marketing with Hertz and Avis. Mm-hmm. Avis knew they were the second position.
Yeah.
They said, hey, look, we know we're not the biggest out there, but we certainly try harder. Mm-hmm. And that was they admitted a negative to elicit a positive from the prospect. And it went a long way for them. That has to happen again.
Agreed.
It does. Well, I mean, even if you look at social media, right? If we post 10 straight posts, myself or Alan, of closing pictures, right? You may get, 12 reactions. Yep. But if you post something real, as far as a struggle you have or something, with your family that's real, and it's not just the glamorous, hey, look at me, right?
Yeah.
You get 10 times as many reactions. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just people respond to authenticity because they want to know that you're real. They want to know that you're going through the shit they're going through.
Well, what do you guys think about like politics and stuff like that? Because I know some people, they will inadvertently, like they'll show themselves shooting guns or hunting, which is definitely associated with one party or the other, you know, in the 2-party system that we have. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, as far as being in a commoditized industry, putting a flag in the ground and then saying, hey, we're over here. You certainly empower, but you're also isolating. What are your thoughts on that? Some people like it. Some people do it.
I mean,
you see Cardone doing it all the time.
I mean, Michael Jordan said Republicans buy sneakers too, right? So it's kind of it's one of those things. Like I've always kind of thought about that. I mean, obviously, there's policies and things like that we will agree with more based on kind of our profession and things we do. For me, I don't like to get into that much, just because I feel like there's right information on both sides.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like there's not a clear line, or there shouldn't be like a clear line, because there's not right and wrong in a lot of cases. I mean, there are certain things maybe, but otherwise, I mean, I feel like there's things that you can get from both sides. And I feel like most of the greatest accomplishments of our country were when partisan things went their own ways and they came together.
Well, it's empathy.
True. Yeah. I mean, I listened to a podcast recently, and this guy had written this book. It was two former governors of Tennessee interviewing this guy, and his book's premise was that is the Democrat, Republican, right and left, is it just, has it gone too far? Is it really a thing anymore? Because I may have a different opinion than you on abortion, but we may see eye to eye on gun control or fiscal, responsibility or whatever. And it doesn't make, because my different opinion on abortion makes me right or left. It's my opinion, right? And so this guy talks about how the moderate is getting lost these days, because if you have a maybe more socially liberal idea, but you're fiscally conservative, well, which are you? Are you right or are you left? Because if you talk to somebody on the right, they're going to go, "Oh, you stupid liberal," and you talk to somebody on the left, they're going to go, "Oh my God, you friggin' right wing," whatever. And it's so interesting to me the way this guy, and I want to read this guy's book, but it was so interesting to me because in my world, in our world, really, like Brandon just said, there's really no good that comes from talking politics with a client, right? Because like Michael Jordan said, even Republicans buy shoes. Anybody buys a house, and why am I going to muddy the waters on a topic that typically generates some very visceral feelings one way or the other, when it really has absolutely no effect on their ability to buy a house or want to buy a house or their likeness of me?
Yeah.
Right? If they like me, I do business with people that I know, like, and trust, and I have to be somebody that they know, like, and trust, right? So if they trust that in my real estate world, I'm going to do what's right by them, who cares what my vision is on abortion? Who cares what my vision is on gun control? It really doesn't matter. Right. So I think that's going to be something that I think we were talking about stuff with this next generation. I think that's going to be something that this next generation will challenge, is that idea of you're either right or left.
I agree.
And I love it.
It's already happening.
I totally. And I've been a moderate my whole life. I've got a family that's typically fairly liberal, and but I've been pretty moderate, and it's because I'm like, well, why if I feel like I'm more conservative on the fiscal stuff, why can I not believe in gay marriage, or why can I not believe in this about abortion? Like, that makes no sense to me. Yeah. Like, I can believe what the hell I want to believe. Mm-hmm. Doesn't make me right, doesn't make me left. Yes, I have some right principles, and yes, I've got some left principles. But like, that's what, like Brandon said a minute ago, the best times were when the two sides kind of put down that whole right and left thing and said, all right, let's figure this out together.
Yeah. And I think we're actually coming into an age that's going to happen more and more.
God, I hope so.
I think it's going to be difficult though with, social media, 24-hour news cycle.
Totally.
Like I feel like that is really where the creation of the such staunch differences in the party politics. Right. Because it's back to the getting headlines, right? You can get headlines much easier if you're screaming about something the other side's doing, right? And you're drawing a more firm line in the sand.
Well, to credit even Gary Vee, I think he's hit upon a word that's going to be a big buzzword in the next half decade to a decade, and that's empathy.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big thing.
He's been on that for a minute, too.
Yeah.
And I love it. I mean,
I think he's an early voice in that.
100%.
Yeah. A very early voice. There's a book, I don't know if I told you guys about it. It's called Pendulum.
Okay.
And I bring it up time to time in the podcast, well, more than time to time. It's funny, since I've read it, I've probably read it and listened to it about 8 or 9 times. For me, it's a better listen. It's a heady read. Yeah. But it talks about the different cultural shifts between what they deem as a generation, which happened in 1983 at Zenith. Now we came past the zenith of a we generation, a we shift, a we attitude. Yep. And there are different attributes to both. They're not really political. They're not based on economies and how they shift. It's all about cultural attitude. Yeah. And it's based on a previous set of books called Generations. And the funny thing is, the timing of this, everything that's been happening is right on schedule. Yeah. It's crazy. And the book was written in 2009, or 10.
That's wild.
Yeah. So they called out like, hey, when this thing comes, 2023 is going to look like 1943 all over again.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So if you're a songwriter, start paying attention to the songs that came out between 1943 and 1957 or so. Yeah. If you want to be successful, start listening to the tonalities that they used. What was popular? What were the hit songs? What were they really saying in those songs? In that realm, I tell every songwriter, I said, look, start paying attention to what they wrote back then, and start writing songs around those types of topics. It's nuts. Yeah. Read the book. It's an amazing read.
Oh, but Gary Vee I've listened to him for quite a few years now. I mean, probably 5 or 6 at least. And, his thing about empathy has been a constant theme of his, of like, people ask me how I built this business and people ask me how I did this. And every time it comes back to empathy. You show empathy to people and you will gain their trust. You will gain their following. You will gain it all.
Yeah.
And it's like, we've lost it.
Yeah. I think it's coming back. I think I'm holding out hope.
Hey, I'm with you.
I think the reason why I brought up the pendulum was because in this time of a zenith it's the most tumultuous portion of that time in the pendulum. Yeah. Everybody's at each other's throats. Yeah. There's tons of witch hunts that could, it's not me, it's you.
Right.
There's a lot of that going around. And they talk about, other than a calamity happening, which if you go every 80 years, 80 years ago was World War II. 80 years before that was the Civil War. 80 years before that was the Revolutionary War. Big calamities. Wow. Mm-hmm. So it's like either we're overdue for one, or we're going to. He said in the book they say the only way to weather a we without a calamity is with empathy. You have to understand your adversary's talking points almost better than they can and articulate it back to them, which is tough.
And be willing to not point a finger and accept it, like you were talking about earlier. Almost agree for a second and say, let me figure out, let me understand how you're here and not where I am, right? Because there's so much of that's lost.
Yeah.
It's you say something that I don't agree with and you're wrong.
Rob Luna?
I know he is. Yeah.
So he said something like, and he's got a big following on social. He says, now's the time to take a stand. You're either standing for something, you're standing for nothing. Now's the time. Okay, dude. And I typed in, I said, look, I get what you're saying. I said, but for people like us, who think like me, what's the point of getting like this on social media? I said, I'd rather do it face to face. Yeah. I said, I don't think I'm influencing anybody. And he's like, well, Elon Musk does this and he influenced me. I said, no, he's supercharged. He put a flag in the soil. He alienated some people and he charged up the other half. Yep. That's all he did.
That's right.
I said, a man convinced against his will is going to be of the same opinion still.
There you
go. Old Carnegie thing.
Yeah.
I think we started the whole conversation today about basic sales skills and building rapport and finding common ground. And so I think for most of us, that's still very important, right? Like if you're Elon Musk, you can do whatever the hell you want. You've got $200 billion, right? So it doesn't really matter. So it's it's hard to compare. So for our younger generation, you can't compare yourself to that, right? Because look at who he was 30 years ago, not where he is right now, right? But I think basic sales skills is not being adversarial. No, you're wrong. I'm going to change your opinion on this. Let's find common ground, right? Like we said, that's the best times in our country's history is let's find common ground across the aisle and figure out how we can work together to forward the betterment of our country, of our culture, of everything, right, that we stand for. And so it's I think that's why sales is so important. In all aspects of life, you're always selling. Yeah. And so it's and that's the most basic fundamental is find common ground and then build on that and find a way to move forward.
Yeah.
Very cool, man.
Yeah. We've got, my wife and I have got a friend and he and her see totally at opposites, but we hang out with them a ton. And it's because they've just kind of agreed that hey, we're going to love each other for being friends, but we're not going to worry about our different political views, and it's been so fun because it's the first, majority of our friends are fairly similar to us in sort of political view and all that kind of stuff. But she and this guy have kind of put down their differences and said, we really enjoy as the four of us spending time together. Yeah. Let's not let that muddy the waters, and it's really awesome. I mean, it's fun to watch.
Yeah. You ever see the video with Sean Penn and Kid Rock?
No.
Yeah, Google it.
Nice. Okay.
That's funny.
Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
It's funny. Another one of my podcast clients is a Democratic leaning podcast, and I've got another one that's right leaning. I don't know how all of a sudden I became into political podcasts, but she at one point after recording, she goes, I just don't think that you're, she's like, you probably don't agree with all the stuff we're talking about. I'm like, does it matter?
Yeah.
I said, my viewpoint on everything is that it's two sides of the same coin. Yeah. And it always has been.
Yeah.
I said, this is World Wrestling. You know, this is the WWE.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at. Everybody is doing this to be entertained.
Yeah.
First and foremost. That's why I don't really engage in it. If you really wanted to ask me about what I think, then fine.
Right.
I said, but, you know, here you are asking me, and I'm telling you. And I said, but you know what? A lot of the views that you have, yeah, I probably don't agree with them, but I still like you.
Right.
Not because you're my client, but I think you're cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to get you on their podcast. I think you're very articulate. You're passionate about what you're talking about, and you believe in it. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know, and there's where we left it.
That's right.
How do people find and follow you guys?
Yeah, huggyandhutch.com. We've got a podcast. We've both got personal socials. So huggyandhutch.com is where it's at. We're enjoying it. We're having a good ride and excited to see where it takes it from here. I think we've both found a bit of a new motivation. So we're excited.
Yeah, we're looking at, like I say, changing it up a little bit and, you know, not necessarily focusing as much on the ugly, but we're focusing on progress because that's kind of the theme that both of us live our lives by is progress and just, you know, forward momentum. And so there's always growth and learning.
Out of the ugly can come progress.
It can.
Yes.
That's right.
That's right. So there you go.
Yeah.
All as usual, all the details will be in the description. And of course, please find and follow us, subscribe, share with your friends. If you know somebody who think would be a great guest for this podcast, let them know and let them know about the link on the website, if you will. Did I just say www? Holy crap.
Taking it back a few years.
Wow. I actually read a script yesterday. They were adamant about putting that in the W's.
Probably because nobody else does it anymore.
Oh my
Why
gosh,
not? It's noticeable.
why not? So there you go. MMTBP.com, mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast.com if you want to type it all out, but I tried to make it easy. So guys, thanks for coming out here. Always.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
This
Appreciate
is
it.
fun.